The day following our wedding, I awoke in the honeymoon suite at the Kimpton Tryon Park Hotel in uptown Charlotte, and my wife presented me with a neatly folded sheet of paper before I'd even savored my first cup of coffee. It wasn't a love note or a heartfelt message from the previous night she'd left under the pillow. Instead, it was a typed, single-spaced, formatted list, numbered and comprising 17 items. Standing at the foot of the bed in her robe, she watched as I read it, displaying an expression I had never seen on her face before. It wasn't one of anxiety, optimism, or the countenance of a woman comprehending she was putting forth an uncommon request. She appeared content, as if she had finally been able to voice something she had been holding back for quite some time. "This is how it will be," she declared, "now that we are married." I read through all 17 items without uttering a word. Then I folded the paper and tucked it into the breast pocket of my suit jacket on the chair and said, "I understand." She smiled, believing this meant agreement. My response wasn't affirmative. I am Beckett Hale, a mergers and acquisitions lawyer based in Charlotte, North Carolina. From the get-go, let me make this clear. I don't debate, I strategize. The sequence of events that unfolded starting from that fateful morning, when his father barged into my office, 11 days later, pale as a ghost, denouncing the financial impact on his family due to me. It all stemmed from that list, and I managed each part with the same methodical approach I employ during hostile acquisitions, silently, steadily, without revealing my cards until the moment of closure. My name is Beckett Hale. At 38, I've dedicated the last 12 years to mergers and acquisitions work at one of Charlotte's larger corporate law firms, the kind with 4 floors of glass offices in the Hearst Tower building, where partners have their names etched in brushed steel letters on the walls, and associates often work until 10 in the evening. Deals that influence markets aren't forced, they merely follow their natural pace. At 35, I became a partner, earlier than most, not due to superior intellect, but because I grasped something elusive which took time to learn. The individual controlling the timing of a transaction typically dictates the outcome. Haste isn't wise. One waits until all factors align, then acts swiftly. This approach has sealed numerous deals for me. It also saved my life, though I didn't realize it at the time, while I sat in a hotel room, reading the 17 guidelines that determined my new identity as a husband. In the 2 years prior to our wedding, I encountered Fleur Castellan at a charity event, where socializing was more important than the charity itself, and the real focus was on who interacts with whom. 29-year-old woman worked in marketing at a commercial real estate firm based in South Park, impressing socially in Charlotte with her polished yet unforced demeanor, confidence without arrogance, and dry, understated wit. Her father, Harlan Castellan, was also present that evening, effortlessly navigating social situations with the experience of a lifetime. He ran Castellan Capital, a mid-sized private equity firm situated near Ballantine, whose name held significance within Charlotte's financial and legal community. Although we had been part of overlapping professional circles for years without direct collaboration, Fleur introduced us that night. He examined me with an appraisal common among older, accomplished men assessing younger counterparts. Within fortnight, it was dinner at East Boulevard's restaurant with Fleur, and within half a year I was introduced to her family in Myers Park, Charlotte's affluent district where homes bear names and oak trees predate most grandparents. Truth be told, I observed their distinctive aura and selectively ignored certain subtleties. The Castellans embodied a unique Charlotte tradition, distinguished by the original business established by Harlan's grandfather and characterized by traditional social standards, families with opinions about spirituality and social clubs. Fleur's mother, Vivienne, exhibited the refinement and meticulousness characteristic of women from a certain generation and background. However, beneath her charming demeanor, there was a sense of control, an urge to manage her surroundings and those within it with a steady, restrained authority. This became apparent to me over time. Flower had been raised in that house, and some of its influence was visible. Occasionally, I noticed how she would subtly adjust minor things I said in public, or how she would refer to our joint decisions as her own choices during family discussions. I justified these incidents as insignificant. After all, I was adept at convincing myself they were trivial because I was content, genuinely content, and I desired my mental image of our life together to be true. We got engaged 14 months after we first met. The gathering was held at the Castellan residence in Myers Park, where 47 unfamiliar faces offered their unwarranted advice on our wedding, future life, my job, and potential partnership prospects with Harlan, a topic that surfaced thrice before I had completed my first drink. Our nuptials took place on a chilly October Saturday at a secluded estate near Waxhaw, Vivian's chosen venue for the ceremony since Flower's birth, given the intricate planning and precision involved. The event was aesthetically pleasing, a wedding worthy of featuring in regional lifestyle magazines, as it eventually did. I pledged my life to a woman I adored, convincing myself that the subtle red flags amassed over 2 years were insignificant. However, it was the morning after, and the subsequent list that painted a different picture. Here's the content from the paper, presented as it was. Family Priorities Sundays dedicated solely to Castellan family, no scheduling of other social or professional engagements. Attend all Castellan family dinners, events, and gatherings without exception. My own family, Mother Darling in Concord, about 25 minutes north of Charlotte, and 2 brothers to be accommodated on other days, with dates negotiated through Fleur in advance. All points listed in bullet format with bold headers. Decisions exceeding $2,000 necessitate input from the Castellan family due to their extensive knowledge in wealth management, which they believe could advantage our household. The second section, Social Presentation, encompassed dress expectations for different types of Castellan family events. Items 4.7. Professional affiliations that were acceptable or off-limits to discuss. Guidelines on describing my work to family acquaintances, and a warning against forming close professional or social ties with individuals raising the Castellan family's concerns without specifying who these individuals are, as this information would be shared as necessary. Section 3 outlined household management, granting Fleur ultimate decision-making power regarding our home, including its location. Initially, we had intended to purchase a property in Dilworth, a neighborhood I favored for its balance between my workplace in Uptown and personal life. However, due adjustments would be made to consider homes in Myers Park, with proximity to her family being a key factor. Items 13 through 15 detailed my obligations in coordinating my schedule with Fleur's professional and social engagements. Item 16, which I have pondered extensively, pertained to certain expectations regarding our shared living arrangement. 16. Any notable career prospects, partnership invitations, or client business that might impact our family's financial or social status should be discussed with Harlan prior to acceptance or refusal, as his connections and insights are crucial in such decisions. 17. Understandably, this may seem demanding, but it is essential for me to feel assured in our marriage. Our relationship thrives on transparency regarding expectations. The morning following our wedding, I tucked the list away and responded, "I understand." Then I prepared coffee from the room's service tray, asked if she'd like some, and we enjoyed the view of uptown Charlotte in the October sunlight without mentioning the list for the remainder of that day. Appearing untroubled on the surface, Fleur appeared more at ease during dinner, chuckling effortlessly, gently touching my arm while conversing, showing a lighter demeanor, similar to someone who has just delivered a long-practiced statement without incident. She interpreted my silence as agreement. I recognized this and made no immediate attempt to clarify the misunderstanding. Instead, I was evaluating. As an M&A attorney, when a client presents me with a proposed acquisition contract, it's not about reacting emotionally to the terms. Rather, it involves reading the entire document thoroughly, discerning the true intentions of the counterparty from what they've written, identifying leverage points, and determining a fair resolution before uttering a single word. The paper Fleur gave me was essentially a predefined reorganization plan for our relationship, presented as an already achieved fact, titled, "This is the way it will be." From my perspective, this move by Fleur was tactically flawed since she had provided the entire document before any negotiation took place. This revelation allowed me to comprehend her demands, her apprehensions, and where Fleur's family might have influenced this, as this list didn't solely originate from my wife. The list consisted of 17 numbered items, section headers, and specific language concerning Harlan's advisory role. It was unusual for Fleur, who is intelligent and competent, to write in such a format. Vivienne Castellan, the meticulous organizer of our wedding, likely played a significant role in drafting this document, perhaps even Harlan himself. The paper I received appeared to be a family position statement disguised as my wife's personal request. The revelation greatly affected my subsequent actions, as this wasn't solely about Fleur. It concerned the expectations following her marriage, which her family perceived as an acquisition rather than a partnership. They had chosen a son-in-law much like Harlan picked assets for strategic value, compatibility with existing holdings, and potential benefits to the portfolio. I was not intended to be a partner but an acquisition. The list outlined the integration plan, and I needed to comprehend the entire extent of what I was facing before making any decisions. I returned to work on Monday morning, 2 days after our wedding, despite some finding it peculiar, as we had postponed our honeymoon until December when our schedules synced better, Fleur's idea, which I didn't object to. Sitting in my 22nd floor office in the Hearst Tower with a view of uptown Charlotte, I spent a considerable amount of time pondering. I contacted the individual I usually consult when faced with intricate problems requiring thoughtful dialogue, my longtime colleague at the firm, Prescott Dunbar, a seasoned lawyer with over 2 decades of experience under his belt, having witnessed countless manifestations of human behavior driven by money and ambition. I didn't reveal the list to him initially, not due to any sense of embarrassment, but because I wanted him to help me reason without the narrative influencing his analysis. In a hypothetical scenario, I posed to him, if someone presented you with a restructuring proposal a day after closing a deal, and the conditions were unfavorable, what would be your initial course of action? Prescott looked at me intently over his reading glasses for a significant moment. I'd aim to discover who prepared it, he replied. The terms reveal their desires, the drafter reveals their fears. This response was spot on, as it always was. Over the subsequent 9 days, I followed my professional routine. I constructed a comprehensive understanding of the circumstances, ensuring privacy by being vague. I didn't spy on anyone nor delved into Fleur's personal matters. My actions were merely focused on reevaluating, with an unbiased perspective, facts I had already gathered about the Castellan family's financial and business standing. Over a span of 2 years, I'd accumulated information through casual social interactions without any specific intention to organize it. The company, Castellan Capital, had been operational for 22 years, but according to discreet professional rumors within Charlotte's financial circle, they experienced 2 underperforming funds in the last 18 months and lost at least 1 substantial institutional investor. These details were previously unrelated to me on a personal level. Now they held significance. The language within the list, emphasizing Harlan's indispensable viewpoint on my professional choices, along with the clause concerning his consultation on major prospects, now held a fresh interpretation. It wasn't merely about asserting control, it was about gaining access. Introducing Harlan into my professional sphere, my client connections, my business opportunities, and the senior partners at my firm who relied on my discernment, offered a different form of worth compared to a son-in-law who merely attended family gatherings on Sundays. In essence, I was perceived as a potential asset in Harlan's realm, and the list represented an attempt to establish the conditions for utilizing that asset before I fully grasped what I was committing to. On the 9th day, 2 events unfolded swiftly, altering the timeline. Initially, Prescott visited my office to inform me about a formal request from a client, a substantial regional insurance conglomerate, seeking our assistance in a sizable portfolio acquisition they were planning. This was substantial business, potentially lasting from 12 to 18 months, and it fit the criteria specified by item 16 on Fleur's list for opportunities I should present to Harlan before proceeding. My reaction to Prescott was swift. We agreed to take up the assignment. I completed the conflict check, carried out standard due diligence, and our involvement was formalized before noon. I neither contacted Harlan nor consulted Fleur. Instead, I performed my duties as usual, much like I had done for 12 years prior to my marriage. In the afternoon that day, Fleur informed me via text that her parents invited us for Sunday dinner that weekend and suggested I leave work by 5 to allow for preparation and travel to Myers Park. She didn't ask, she stated it as fact. I replied, I have a filing deadline on Sunday, I'll try to make it for dessert. This was not accurate. There was no such filing deadline, but I intentionally began avoiding adherence to the unilaterally imposed terms of an agreement I never consented to without disclosing my plans or reasons. On a Tuesday, 11 days after our wedding, Harlan called me at my office. It seemed he had obtained my direct line from Fleur since I hadn't provided it personally. He skipped formalities, he said. Beckett, I learned you took on a new assignment without consulting me first. paused briefly, mirroring the pause taken before pondering a question in a deposition without showing signs of thinking, declared taking on a fresh legal case, stating it's part of my routine. "You comprehend," he replied. We shared an implicit agreement. Prolonged the silence over the line for a tense moment. Questioned the nature of his presumed understanding. Clarified that client relations are confidential and professional decisions personal, maintaining this principle as both a licensed attorney and individually. He uttered an indistinct noise, halfway between a laugh and a breath, followed by "You must visit me." I mentioned a busy schedule for the week. He insisted on Thursday morning, 9 a.m., his office near Ballantyne. Agreed to check and get back to him, failed to contact him. However, Harland approached me instead. 2 days hence on Thursday, my assistant phoned at 11, disclosing that an individual named Harland Castellan was in the foyer, seeking an audience without prior arrangement. I paused, adjusted my coat, and instructed her to escort him upstairs. I wish to portray this situation accurately as I believe it's significant. My office in the Hearst Tower is a corner one, offering a panoramic view of uptown Charlotte on this particular clear November day. From 2 directions, the city's entire grid unfolds, featuring Bank Towers, Duke Energy Plaza, the courthouse, and on a clear day, even the green expanse of Freedom Park in the south is discernible. There's a specific chair before my workstation designated for challenging discussions, as it offers the person sitting a comforting backlight, not a power play per se, but a professional ease learned from an old mentor. I noticed Harland enter in an expensive charcoal suit, his visage betraying distress. Unlike how I'd anticipated, he wasn't composed. He appeared drained, the complexion of someone who spent 3 days worrying intensely and stormed into my office following a hasty choice made under duress. Instead of settling in the chair reserved for him, he remained standing. "Aren't you aware of the damage this has inflicted on that family?" he exclaimed. He didn't need to be told to sit down. He was already aware of the protocol. However, he complied with my instruction. "Speak up," I urged him. "What's going on?" It turned out that the insurance group, which we hadn't been aware of when we took on the case, but now it mattered due to its relevance, was involved in a deal touching one of Castellan Capital's underperforming investments. This revelation, though unforeseen, was not entirely unexpected, as I had suspected something like this might occur without knowing its specific form. Harland seemingly anticipated possessing the sophisticated knowledge and connections that a son-in-law in my role might offer. Not anything illicit or straightforward, but the subtle details shared among tight-knit families, often referred to as competitive intelligence. As I accepted the proposal without informing him, I effectively closed that channel completely. Not only was there no need for dialogue regarding the subject with him, I was ethically precluded from doing so due to attorney-client confidentiality. He sought a role within my professional sphere, and instead, I isolated it. The family's potential advantage from what I was supposed to contribute to the marriage was not merely postponed, it was terminated. This is what he was furious about. In a soft yet forceful tone, Harland Castellan, a man seldom raising his voice in a room with transparent walls overlooking other offices, stated, "This was meant to be a partnership. Your ambition and my resources combined, that's the tradition of our family. That's what we established for Fleur." I paid close attention to this sentence. "For Fleur, not by Fleur," he clarified. What had been constructed, what had been planned. "Harland," I responded, maintaining my usual steady and measured tone during negotiations, since this was now a negotiation of the most personal nature. "I believe we have significantly differing views on what this marriage was supposed to be." "Fleur set the terms," he said. "She made them clear. And there it was, the confession I required." Fleur's list, as it turned out, wasn't entirely Fleur's list. He had just revealed in his rage, in his despair, what I had long suspected but not confirmed. "After our wedding, you received a list of 17 items from Fleur, crafted by her father and formatted by her mother. Wrapped in the vocabulary of a wife's emotional necessity for marital security, she handed it to me before I had even considered anything beyond my unconsumed coffee. I retrieved a folder containing its duplicate from my desk drawer and placed it on the table between us. Upon viewing it, Harland stiffened his jaw. "It's important that you understand," I stated, "that I haven't consented to any of these points. Not the first, not the last, not any in between. This is not due to reluctance in being a good husband or a fair partner, but because such a document presented post-wedding as a singular decree lacks the essence of an agreement. It's more of a predicament. Harlan was about to speak, but I continued, maintaining my composure. If Fleur and I encounter marital issues that require resolution, we will tackle them jointly, together. We won't be bound by a list. Weeks following Harlan's office visit, a reckoning occurred, albeit a quieter one than a sensational tale might suggest. Initially, Fleur was unaware of the extent her parents had orchestrated that list. Though she knew they were involved, she consented, even supported it. However, there were facets that remained obscure, with some parts still in development and others proving painful. This narrative aims neither to vilify complex individuals nor distort reality. Grew up in a family where Harlan guided significant decisions, and it seemed she truly desired the structure the list symbolized, even if not all items were her own creation. Upon hearing about the situation in my office, the meeting with her father, the revelation of the list's source, and understanding the wedding expectations, she remained silent for a long while. This was a silence I recognized as deep contemplation, not an act. Eventually, she wept. Not tears of anger or defensiveness, but tears that signaled remorse for actions beyond simple apologies. "I sought safety," she admitted. "I've observed him handling everything my entire life, and I didn't know how to." She paused, then resumed her thoughts. For 2 years, she had never explicitly stated this truth. She was uncertain about being married to someone she couldn't manage. This honesty, however, didn't make me consider ending our marriage. Instead, it enlightened me about the true issue we were grappling with. Fleur, at age 31, had never taken a significant decision beyond her father's influence, and was petrified of being in an equal partnership that wasn't under her family's control. This was a genuine problem, not an insurmountable one. We initiated couples therapy 3 weeks following the conversation about the list, with Doctor as our counselor. Adaiza, situated close to Southend, exhibits a straightforward pragmatism that struck me instantly, suggesting an unwillingness to tolerate complacency within her office with convenient narratives. Her first remark, following our descriptions of the post-wedding discussion, was, "The issue isn't truly the list. The list is merely where the problem surfaced. The crucial question lies in what each of you is prepared to act upon regarding the list's implications." This thought resonated deeply with me, as well as Fleur. We returned a week later, and then another time after that, gradually, through diligent effort, which I won't sugarcoat by saying it was easy or comfortable. We commenced constructing something new in our relationship that had never fully materialized before. A genuine discussion ensued between us, devoid of any documentation, family background, or professional expertise influencing our conversation about my fears. Over a span of many months, this led to an intricate yet sincere evaluation from both sides. Fleur acknowledged for the first time that her father's control over her life was not always in her best interest, but occasionally benefited the family as a whole, which is a distinct concept. She recounted a series of challenging talks with Harlan that I wasn't privy to, and she confided in me that these were among the most difficult she had ever experienced. Harlan was initially reluctant to accept his role as the problem's source. This is not typical of Harlan's character. Over time, an unexpected development unfolded. Vivienne, Fleur's mother, admitted to being more truthful about the past events. She confessed to Fleur, as far as I know, that her insistence on the list was a mistake, acknowledging she had prioritized protecting Fleur within the system at the expense of considering whether Fleur truly desired to reside within it. This conversation, relayed to me secondhand, brought about an unforeseen change in my relationship with Vivienne. Although I still harbor reservations about her judgment regarding Fleur, I now hold a newfound admiration for her honesty. In terms of our professional ties, Harlan and I have never revisited the insurance assignment since then. Each party is aware of the reason behind it. The situation progressed, was managed discreetly, and in accordance with how I handle all client matters, and the intersection of his business dealings and mine was resolved independently without any external intervention. My law firm has no further ties to Castellan Capital, a state I anticipate will continue for the near future. Harlan and I cross paths at Castellan family gatherings, which I now attend based on my own preferences, not as a weekly duty, not as an item on a list, but when Fleur and I choose to, when we decide that's where we want to be. Our interactions are polite, they are not friendly. I believe we understand each other better than before, which could be a form of mutual respect, even if it's not the traditional definition of friendship. The point I wish to convey revolves around an insight I gained about the hotel room incident and the 17-point list presented to me thereafter, which seemed to dictate my future persona. The simplified narrative may cast me as the hero and others as villains, a scenario you might have desired due to its appeal and simplicity. However, the truth is more intricate. Fleur gave me that list out of fear. She was terrified because, in the absence of her familiar family structure, she wasn't certain how to navigate a marriage. It wasn't manipulation per se, but rather a desperate grasp for security from someone who hadn't learned that safety could originate within a relationship instead of being imposed on it. The manipulation lay in the execution, timing, and presentation of a document that intertwined her father's interests with what appeared as her own emotional needs. Both facts hold true concurrently. Fleur was both frightened and exploited. Recognizing this truth doesn't make the past actions acceptable, but it does make the situation manageable, which is different. I want to clarify that we are still married. It is essential to understand this. We have in recent months a marriage distinct from the one we started with, characterized by honesty, equality, and open communication, unlike before where one person managed while the other complied. Our home is in Dilworth, the neighborhood I initially desired, not Myers Park. Fleur is cultivating relationships with my mother, Darlene, and my brothers that exist independently of any calendar approval system. On certain Sunday mornings, she accompanies me to Concord without a specific reason, choosing to do so simply for pleasure. At my mother's kitchen table, I observe her sipping subpar coffee while chuckling at something my brother said. This image reminds me that the genuine version of her existed all along, concealed beneath her layers. She continues to learn to rely on this authentic self, as do I, albeit in unique ways. Day following our wedding, my spouse handed me a list detailing expectations, which she titled, "This is how it's going to be." I folded the paper, placed it in my pocket, and responded, "I understand." Beneath the surface of her statement lay fear masked as control. Instead of submitting to this control, I opted for self-determination, eventually deciding not to let the fear triumph. This is the most challenging form of love I have experienced. I'm unsure if I would desire it any other way. What resonated with me about this tale isn't the list itself. It's that Beckett read every one of the 17 rules, folded the paper, and responded, "I understand," before carefully considering his response. Such behavior is uncommon. Many of us, including myself, have likely spoken words we wished we could retract. There's a distinction between being tolerant and being exploited. Beckett recognized that difference. That, to my mind, is what merits contemplation. Not every disagreement necessitates a public victory. I'm eager to hear your thoughts on how you might have handled that situation in the comments below, and if you're new, consider subscribing. We share stories like this regularly. Until next time.